Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today, we're going to be looking at what it really takes to succeed in 2025. We're taking a deep dive into some research that suggests success isn't what it used to be.
Yeah, it's interesting. You think it'd be the same as it was 5 or 10 years ago, but the research you sent over, it paints a pretty different picture.
So what are we talking about here?
Yeah.
Like, what's different now than it was back then?
Well, one of the biggest things is that the old grind it out mentality, just putting in the hours and the individual effort, that's kind of out the window. The new metrics of success are all about things like impact creation and network leverage.
Network leverage. That sounds kind of like a Wall Street buzzword to me.
It sounds more complicated than it is. It really just boils down to who you know and how well you can collaborate. Your network is becoming just as important as what you know these days. The LinkedIn report actually highlights this woman, Sarah Chen, who tripled her output and saved almost half of her time just by shifting her focus to collaborating more and using AI tools to help her team work smarter.
So it's not just about being like a lone wolf superstar anymore. It's about teamwork and using tech to like multiply your impact or something.
Exactly. And it's not just theory. A 2024 LinkedIn Global Report found that something like 78% of top performers are already using these new metrics. So they're measuring the impact of their work, the strength of their network, and how quickly they can adapt to new challenges.
I mean, yeah, those are definitely important, but let's be honest, a lot of people hear AI and they think, oh no, the robots are taking over.
Right, it's a common fear. But the research actually shows that AI is creating new opportunities and making us more productive, not less.
So it's not man versus machine, it's more like we should be working with AI.
Exactly. Think of it like AI is your partner. This study on AI impact shows that we could potentially save something like 15 and a half hours per week by using AI to do all that boring routine stuff. That frees us up for more creative and strategic work.
Wait, 15 hours, that's like 2 whole workdays.
That's the power of tech, right? AI can analyze all this data, automate tasks, even help you make decisions. It frees us up to focus on what we as humans are good at: creativity, problem solving, building relationships.
Okay, so the robots aren't taking over just yet. But you mentioned that the skills we need to succeed are changing too. What exactly are we talking about here?
Yeah, human skills are more important than ever, but the skills that matter most have definitely evolved. The top 5 skills for 2025 are adaptive thinking, digital collaboration, AI communication, creative problem solving, and something called systems understanding.
Okay, I'm going to need you to break some of those down for me. What does it actually mean to be good at something like AI communication or systems understanding? Those sound pretty futuristic.
I know they sound kind of intimidating, but they're actually a lot more practical than you think. Like, take AI communication, for example. It's not about learning to code, it's more about understanding how to work with AI, how to give it instructions, how to interpret the output that it gives you, and collaborate with it effectively.
So it's like learning how to speak robot.
Haha, yeah, in a way. And then systems understanding, that's about seeing the big picture. It's being able to connect the dots and understand how different parts of a system all work together.
So instead of just focusing on like our own little tasks, we need to understand how our work fits into the bigger picture.
Exactly. That's how you avoid those unintended consequences and make sure your decisions are good for the whole system, not just one part of it.
I can see how those skills would be really valuable in a world where everything is so interconnected.
Mm.
But how do we actually learn these new skills?
Mm-hmm.
Is there like a future of work boot camp I can sign up for?
That's where AI-enhanced learning comes in. And yeah, I guess you could call it a boot camp for the future.
That sounds intense.
Well, it's more about personalized learning tailored to your specific needs. Like, imagine having a digital coach that curates content just for you, tracks your progress, and even simulates real-world scenarios so you learn faster.
Wow, so AI can help us learn smarter too.
It already is. There was a really fascinating study done at Johns Hopkins back in 2024 where they had a group of medical students use AI-enhanced learning. The students who used the AI-enhanced learning were able to prepare for their exams over 3 times faster than the students who didn't.
3 times faster. I'm listening. But what does this AI learning look like? Are we talking about VR headsets and holograms here?
It can be high-tech if you want, but it doesn't have to be. Like, VR is a great tool, but there are simpler ways to do it, too.
Good, because I don't think I'm ready to wear a headset every time I want to learn something new.
Right. Well, you've got things like micro-learning where you break learning down into 5-minute chunks. So it's perfect for busy people.
Yeah.
And then you've got adaptive learning where your learning path is actually personalized based on what you're already good at and what you need to work on.
So it's about making learning more bite-sized and personalized.
Exactly. A great example of this is this tech startup with 250 employees. They implemented these new learning methods company-wide, and they saw their employees' skill acquisition improve by 147% within just 90 days.
Wow, so it's not just about individuals upskilling, it's about organizations transforming how they approach learning.
Exactly. And the results are pretty clear. The Harvard Business Review actually did a study in 2024, and they found that teams that embrace this new way of learning outperform their peers by a factor of 3.7.
Wow, that's huge. But is this just for tech companies, or can these principles be applied to, any field?
That's the great thing about it. These principles are universal. Whether you're a doctor, an artist, an entrepreneur, whatever, the ability to learn quickly and adapt to change is crucial in 2025 and beyond.
Okay, so we've covered a lot here. We've talked about how the metrics of success have changed, the power of technology, and the evolution of human skills. It's pretty clear that we're entering a whole new era of work and learning, but it can be a lot to process. What's like one practical step that our listeners can take to start integrating these concepts into their own lives?
I think one of the most important things is to develop what's called a deep work practice.
Deep work. What does that even mean?
Deep work is basically the ability to focus on something without getting distracted. And I'm talking about like a really cognitively demanding task. In a world full of distractions, that kind of focus is like a superpower.
That's definitely something I struggle with. There are just so many distractions these days, emails, notifications, social media. How do we actually reclaim our focus in the digital age?
That's where understanding the science behind deep work comes in. Research from Microsoft actually found that knowledge workers who practice deep work are 4 times more productive, and they reduce their errors by 82%.
Wow, 4 times more productive. Definitely interested. But how do we actually tap into this deep work magic? Do we need to become digital hermits and cut ourselves off from the world completely?
No, no, not at all. It's more about creating a system that actually helps you do deep work. One of the best ways to do this is to use what's called the 4-zone system.
The 4-zone system, what's that?
So basically, you divide your day into different zones for different types of work. You've got the focus zone for your most important tasks, then the shallow zone, which is for quick responses and emails. You've got the collaboration zone for, well, collaborating, and then the recovery zone, which is for mental breaks.
So it's all about being strategic with your time and energy.
Exactly. And there are even some really cool tools that can help you with this. There's brain.fm. It uses these special audio frequencies to help you focus better. There's the Forest app, which makes staying off your phone a game. And there's Rescue Time, which helps you track how you're spending your time and figure out what your biggest distractions are.
So it's a mix of planning and using the right tech. But what about people who are already feeling overwhelmed? Adding even more to their plate might just make things worse, right?
Yeah, I get that. But deep work isn't about working more, it's about working better. When you're able to focus deeply, even for just a short amount of time, you get more done in less time. And that frees up space for you to do other things that really matter to you.
Okay, so quality over quantity.
Exactly. And we've seen some great examples of this in action. Like this software development team, they implemented deep work principles, and they were able to increase their output from 2 features to 7 features per week. And get this, the quality of their work actually went up by 68%.
Wow, that's incredible. It sounds like deep work isn't just about productivity, it's also about quality and well-being.
Exactly. When you're constantly distracted and trying to do a million things at once, your brain can't function at its best. You get burnt out, you make mistakes, you feel overwhelmed. But when you practice deep work, it gives your brain space to really focus and do its best work. That leads to more satisfaction, better results, and a more sustainable way of working.
Yeah, I know that when I'm able to really focus on a task and tune out all the distractions, I feel way more energized and creative. But it's definitely a skill that you have to work at.
Definitely. It takes time, practice, and the right tools to support you. But it's definitely worth it in the end.
Okay, so deep work is super important. But what about energy management? How does that fit into all of this?
Energy management is crucial. You can have the best deep work strategies in the world, but if you're exhausted, you're not going to be able to keep up that high performance.
So true. You know those afternoon slumps where your brain just feels fried?
I know them well. The key to avoiding those crashes is to understand your own energy patterns and work with them, not against them. Our bodies naturally go through these cycles called circadian rhythms, and they influence our energy levels, focus, even creativity throughout the day.
Instead of trying to power through when we're tired, we should try to work when our energy is naturally high.
Exactly. When your energy is low, you schedule those less demanding tasks like email or admin work. And when you're feeling energized, you tackle your most important creative, strategic work.
That makes sense. But how do we figure out what our energy patterns are? Is there
Mhm.
like an energy test we can take?
There are some really great tools that can help with that, like the Aura Ring. It's a wearable device that tracks your sleep, heart rate variability, all kinds of things that can give you insight into your energy cycles. There are apps that can help you track your energy levels throughout the day and help you see those patterns. Once you know your rhythm, you can structure your day to make the most of those peak performance windows.
Okay, so we've covered deep work, energy management, and what about the tasks themselves? How do we make sure we're working on the right things and not just wasting time on dizzy work?
That's where flow state engineering comes in.
Flow state. You mean like athletes talk about being in the zone?
Exactly. It's that state of deep focus where you're completely absorbed in what you're doing. Time flies by and you're super productive. And the good news is you don't have to be an athlete to experience it. Research has shown that you can actually trigger flow states.
Wait, you're telling me we can engineer those amazing moments of focus and productivity?
Absolutely. The Flay Research Collective did this study back in 2024 where they studied thousands of professionals, and they found that there are certain triggers that can actually help you get into a flow state. They had like a 76% success rate.
Okay, I'm definitely interested. What are these flow triggers?
Well, it's not just one magic button. It's more like a system of different practices and conditions that set you up for flow. One framework that's really helpful is the 4D flow system.
Okay, I love a good framework. What are the 4Ds?
So the first D is design, and that's all about creating the right environment for flow. So like eliminating distractions, making sure the task is challenging enough but not too challenging, and having a clear goal in mind.
So it's about setting yourself up for success both physically and mentally.
Exactly. Then there's deploy, which is all about your mental state going into the task. So things like priming your focus, shifting your mindset, and getting yourself mentally ready to enter that flow state.
It's almost like a ritual.
Yeah. The third D is deepen, which is all about staying in flow once you get there. So anchoring your attention, sustaining that focus, and making those flow experiences last longer.
So it's not just about getting into flow, it's about staying there.
Right. And then the last D is direct, which is about using that flow state to really excel at whatever you're doing.
So you're channeling that flow energy into something specific.
Exactly. When you combine all four of those, design, deploy, deepen, and direct, it's a powerful system for getting into flow and using it to accomplish your goals.
That makes a lot of sense. But what does this actually look like in real life?
So there was this creative agency that was really struggling to meet deadlines. After they implemented flow principles, they were able to reduce their project completion time from 6 hours to 2.5 hours, and the quality of their work went way up too.
Wow, from 6 hours to 2.5, that's amazing.
It is, right. Their client satisfaction went up almost 200% too.
That's huge.
And it's not just creative fields. There was this developer team, just 8 people, and they saw their code quality improve by 168%. And their development speed increased by 215% just by adding these flow practices to their work.
So flow isn't just for artists and creative types. It can help anyone perform at their best.
Exactly. And the more you practice it, the easier it becomes.
I'm definitely sensing a theme here. Practice makes progress. But I'm curious, what are some things our listeners can do to make their work environments more flow-friendly?
Well, first you have to figure out what your own flow triggers are. What helps you get into that zone?
So it's like becoming a flow detective.
I love that. Yeah, you have to figure out what works for you. Maybe you need music to focus, or maybe you need complete silence. It's about paying attention to what helps you get into that state and then make it a regular part of your routine.
That's much better than just crossing your fingers and hoping inspiration will strike.
Exactly. You're taking control of your own productivity by understanding the science behind peak performance and then creating a system that helps you reach your goals.
Okay, so we've talked about deep work, energy management, flow state. It's clear that to succeed in 2025, you need to take a holistic approach to your work. But I'm curious, how do we make all of these practices sustainable habits instead of just these short bursts of productivity?
That's where habit engineering comes in.
Habit engineering. Like, We're building robots, but it's ourselves.
Yeah, exactly. We're using the science of habit formation to our advantage.
I'm all for that. New Year's resolutions never seem to stick. How do we break out of that and make real change?
The key is to go beyond just relying on willpower and take a more systematic approach. MIT's behavioral lab actually found that engineered habits were 3.5 times more successful than habits formed the traditional way.
Okay, engineer a habit. I like the sound of that. How do we do it?
A good place to start is with the SPECS framework.
Specs, another framework. Break it down for me.
Okay, so S stands for stack. You're going to link your new habit to an existing one. It piggybacks on a routine you already do, which makes it automatic.
So like if I want to start meditating every morning, I could stack it with brushing my teeth.
Perfect. You brush your teeth, and bam, you meditate. It just becomes part of the flow.
No more decision fatigue. I like it. What's P?
P is for process. You got to break down your goal into tiny little steps. So instead of trying to meditate for 30 minutes right away, you might start with 5. Little wins build momentum.
Small steps. What about E?
E is environment. Optimize your surroundings to make the habit easier.
So like setting up my workout clothes the night before if I want to exercise in the morning?
That's it. Or finding a quiet spot in your home for meditation. Whatever removes those little obstacles.
What's C?
C is celebrate. It sounds kind of silly, but it's important. Give yourself a reward for doing the new habit. Even a small one reinforces that positive connection.
Okay, so maybe I treat myself to a new book after a week of meditating.
Exactly. Your brain starts to connect the habit with a good feeling. And lastly, S for scale.
So now we're leveling up.
Right. Once the habit is kind of stuck, you gradually make it a bit harder. If you've been meditating for 10 minutes, bump it to 15. Try a new type of meditation. Keep it interesting.
Always improving.
Exactly. This approach really works. They did this case study on fitness transformation. They had this group of people who really struggled to stick with the gym. Only 12% could do it consistently. But after using the SPECS framework, their success rate jumped to 94%.
Wow. 12% to 94%. They completely transformed their habits.
They did, and they did it in just 18 days, crushing their goals. It shows that with the right system in place, you can change.
That's so encouraging. A lot of people think their habits are set in stone, but it sounds like we have more power than we think.
We really do. And this isn't just for fitness. It can be anything. Productivity, learning a language, building relationships. The principles of habit engineering work across the board.
Okay, so we've covered deep work, energy management, flow states, and habit engineering. We're building a solid foundation for success here, but there's one piece missing: making good decisions.
You're right. You could have the best habits, laser focus, but if you're making bad decisions, you're not going to reach your full potential.
We've all been there, making impulsive decisions or overthinking and getting stuck. How do we become better at making decisions?
Well, first you have to understand that our brains aren't always rational. We're prone to biases and emotional thinking. A Stanford study found that the average person only makes accurate decisions about 28% of the time.
Wow, less than a third. That's a little scary.
It is, but the good news is that when we bring structure to the decision-making process, we can dramatically improve those odds. We need a system that helps us make choices that align with our goals, not just our feelings in the moment.
I'm all for better decisions. What does this system look like?
One framework that can really help is the CLEAR framework.
Okay, another framework. What does CLEAR stand for?
It's a step-by-step guide to better decision-making. C is for context analysis. You need to really understand the situation, gather all the information before you make a move.
So kind of like doing your research before you buy something big, right?
Yeah.
Comparing prices, reading reviews.
Exactly. Then there's L for logic structure. This is where you create a decision tree, you weigh the pros and cons, and you look at the risks.
So we bring in that analytical thinking.
Right. But you can't ignore emotions entirely. That's where E for emotional calibration comes in.
I've definitely made decisions based on fear or excitement that I later regretted. How do we manage those emotional influences?
It's about being aware of our biases. Are we making this choice because it aligns with our goals? Or are we being driven by fear or greed? Sometimes just taking a step back and breathing can make all the difference.
Like hitting the pause button on a decision.
That's it. Then comes A for action mapping. Once you've made the decision, this is where you get specific. How are you going to implement this? What do you need? What are the possible obstacles? You're turning the decision into a plan.
So it's not enough to just make a choice. You have to have a plan for putting it into action.
Right. And lastly, R for review system. You have to track the outcomes of your decisions. Did it work out how you expected? What did you learn? Every decision is a learning opportunity.
So it's a constant cycle of deciding, acting, reviewing, and refining.
Exactly. And the clear framework gives you that structure. Plus, there's so many great tools now that can help you make better decisions.
Like what?
There are decision matrix builders that let you compare different choices, probability calculators that help you understand the risks, implementation planners that break down big decisions into smaller steps.
So it's like having a digital assistant for decision making.
Pretty much. There was this investment firm that was struggling, and after using the CLEAR framework and these decision-making tools, their success rate jumped from 41% to 89%.
Wow, that's almost double. They clearly made a good decision there.
They did.
Hmm.
And they also made decisions faster, and their return on investment went up by 218%. So it's about making better decisions and getting better results.
That's pretty convincing that there's a science to decision making.
Yeah.
But it's not all about the numbers, right?
Right. There was this leadership team that saw a 235% improvement in their decision quality after learning these principles. But what's interesting is that they also reported feeling more confident and aligned in their choices, and that had a really positive impact on how their team worked together.
So it's about making better decisions and creating a better decision-making culture.
Exactly. And it's not just for business either. We make decisions all the time that affect our lives. Learning to make those choices more effectively can improve our relationships, our health, everything.
Okay, we've covered so much ground, from deep work to energy management, flow states, habit engineering, and now decision-making. It feels like we're really building a toolkit for success here.
We are. But we're just getting started. There's so much more to learn and explore.
Well, lucky for us, this deep dive isn't over yet.
Welcome back. We're ready to jump back into this whole habit engineering thing.
Yeah, it's pretty fascinating stuff. I mean, it really is like we're building these systems for ourselves. Like, we're the robots.
Exactly. Remember that MIT research we were talking about? They found that engineered habits were like way more successful than traditional methods. So it's about understanding how our brains actually work.
Okay, so how do we do this engineering? Where do we even begin?
A really good framework is called SPECS.
Specs. Oh, okay. I'm guessing that's an acronym.
You know it. Each letter stands for a key step in the process. So the first one, S, is for stack. It means you link your new habit to an existing one, so you create an automatic trigger. You're basically piggybacking on a routine you already do.
Okay, so like if I wanted to meditate every morning, I could stack it on top of brushing my teeth, which I already do every day without fail.
Perfect example. Brushing your teeth, boom, leads right into meditation. No need to even think about it. It's just automatic.
I like that. What's next?
So P is for process. Here's where you break down your goal into tiny steps. So instead of trying to meditate for 30 minutes on day one, you start with 5 minutes. The idea is to get those small wins to build momentum.
Little by little, right?
Exactly. Then we have E for environment. You're going to optimize your surroundings to make it easier to do the new habit.
Okay, so like if I'm trying to work out in the morning, I'd put my workout clothes out the night before.
Yes. Or, like we said with meditation, find a quiet place in your home. Anything to remove those obstacles.
Makes sense. What's C?
C is for celebration. It might seem silly, but it's powerful. You have to reward yourself for doing the new habit, even small rewards. It reinforces that connection in your brain between the habit and feeling good.
So maybe I buy myself a new book after a week of meditating, something like that.
Exactly. And finally, S for scale.
Okay, so now we're talking about taking it to the next level.
Right. Once a habit is pretty solid, you gradually increase the difficulty. So you've been meditating for 10 minutes maybe, now you bump it to 15, or try a new type of meditation. Keep pushing yourself.
Continuous improvement.
That's it. There's this amazing case study on fitness transformation. There was this group of people who just could not stick with going to the gym. Only about 12% of them were able to do it consistently. But after using this SPECS framework, their adherence rate shot up to 94%.
Ooh, 94%. That's a complete turnaround.
It is. And they did it in just 18 days, crushing their original goals. It just goes to show that when you have the right system, you can really change.
That's inspiring. A lot of people think their habits are set in stone, but it sounds like we can change more than we think.
We absolutely can. And remember, this isn't just about fitness. We can apply these principles to anything. Want to be more productive, learn a new skill, improve your relationships. Habit engineering can help.
Okay, so deep work, energy management, flow states, now habit engineering. It feels like we're building a really solid toolkit for success here. But there's one key piece that's still missing: making good decisions.
You're absolutely right. You can have all the right habits and tons of focus, but if your decisions are bad, you're not going to reach your full potential.
That's so true. We've all made those impulsive decisions or gotten stuck overthinking things. How do we get better at making good choices?
The first step is understanding that our brains are kind of wired to make decisions that aren't always in our best interest. Like we're prone to biases and getting swept up in emotions. There was actually a study at Stanford, and they found that we only make accurate decisions about 28% of the time.
Less than a third of the time. That's kind of scary.
I know, right? But don't worry. The good news is that when you bring structure and awareness to decision making, you can improve those odds significantly. We need a system that helps us make choices that are based on logic and our goals, not just how we feel in the moment.
I'm all about making better choices. So what does this system look like?
There's this framework that's really helpful. It's called the CLEAR framework.
Okay, another framework. I'm liking this.
Yeah.
What does CLEAR stand for?
So it's a step-by-step process for making better decisions. The C stands for context analysis. You need to make sure you really understand the situation and gather all the relevant information before you even start making a decision.
So it's kind of like doing your research before you make a big purchase. Comparing prices, reading reviews, all of that.
Exactly. The next one, L, is logic structure. So this is where you create a decision tree, where you weigh pros and cons and you look at the potential risks.
So it's about bringing in that analytical, data-driven thinking.
Right, but we can't forget about emotions completely. That's where E for emotional calibration comes in.
Oh yeah, I know. I've made plenty of decisions based on fear or excitement that I later regretted. How do we keep those emotions in check?
It's about being really honest with yourself about your own biases. Are you making this choice because it's truly the best option, or are you letting your emotions cloud your judgment? Sometimes just taking a step back, a few deep breaths, that can make all the difference.
So hitting the pause button before we make a big decision.
Exactly. Okay, so once you've made the decision, now you move on to A for action mapping. This is where you get specific. How are you actually going to put this decision into practice? What resources do you need? What might get in your way? So you're taking that decision and turning it into a concrete plan.
I can see how that would be really helpful for actually following through on a decision.
Absolutely. And then finally, R stands for review system. It's super important to track the outcome of your decisions. Did it work out the way you thought it would? What did you learn from the process? Every decision can be a learning experience if you let it.
So it's like this cycle of deciding, acting, reviewing, and then refining your decision-making process based on what you learn.
You got it. And along with this framework, there are tons of awesome tools these days that can help you even more.
Like what kind of tools?
Well, you've got decision matrix builders that can help you compare different choices based on criteria that matter to you. There are probability calculators that help you figure out how much risk you're taking on. And there are even implementation planners that can break down those big decisions into smaller, manageable steps.
Wow. It's like having a digital decision-making coach in your pocket.
Pretty much. And combining these tools with a solid framework like CLEAR, well, the results are pretty amazing. They did a case study on this investment firm that was really struggling. Their success rate with investments was only 41%. But after they started using the CLEAR framework and these decision-making tools, their success rate went up to 89%.
Almost double. Talk about a good return on investment.
Right. And they also found that they were making decisions faster, and their return on investment for those decisions went up by 218%. So it's not just about making smarter choices, it's about getting better results.
I think a lot of people would be happy about that. But I'm guessing it's not just about the numbers.
You're right. A good example is this leadership team, 12 executives, and after integrating these principles, they saw a 235% improvement in the quality of their decisions. But what's really interesting is that they also reported feeling way more confident and aligned about those decisions, and that actually made their team dynamics a lot better.
So making better decisions can actually improve team morale and the whole company culture.
Exactly. And remember, we make decisions every day, big and small, and all of those decisions have an impact on our lives. Learning how to make those choices more effectively can improve our relationships, our health, our overall well-being.
It sounds like good decision-making is a life skill everybody needs.
It really is. And it's a skill that anyone can learn and improve on.
Well, that's good news. Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Ready to wrap up our exploration of success in 2025.
Absolutely. We've covered a lot, but like you said, there's always more to uncover.
So true. We've talked about working deeply, managing our energy habits, and even making better decisions. But how do we move beyond just our own success and think bigger? How do we come up with those game-changing ideas that really make a difference?
That's where this whole exciting field of innovation engineering comes in. It's about creating a system for consistently generating those breakthrough ideas instead of just hoping they'll magically appear during a brainstorming session.
So instead of waiting for inspiration to strike, we're making it happen.
Exactly. And there's actually research that shows this works. Back in 2024, the MIT Innovation Lab found that when you take a more systematic approach to innovation, it's 5 times more effective than just brainstorming. They're seeing an 82% success rate.
Okay, 5 times more effective. I'm all ears. How do we actually do that? How do we build this system?
There's a framework you might find helpful. It's called Spark.
Okay, another framework. I love it. Fill me in. What is Spark?
So it's a 5-step process. First, S stands for scope definition. This is where you get crystal clear about the problem you're solving or the opportunity you're exploring. Basically, you're setting the boundaries for your innovation efforts.
So you got to know exactly what you're aiming for before you even start brainstorming ideas.
Right. Then you move on to P for pattern recognition. This is where you start looking for inspiration in unexpected places, analyzing trends across different industries, looking for patterns connecting ideas that don't seem related at first glance.
This is about getting out of your comfort zone and looking for ideas everywhere.
Exactly. The more diverse your sources of inspiration, the more creative your ideas will be. Okay, now for the fun part. A is for alternative generation. This is where you let loose with brainstorming, challenge your assumptions, and really push the limits of what's possible.
Sounds like brainstorming on overdrive.
It is. The goal is to come up with as many potential solutions as possible, even crazy ones. Once you have a bunch of ideas, you move to R for refinement process. Time to start filtering, testing, and refining. You're looking for ideas that are feasible, viable, and desirable.
So you're weeding out the good ideas from the bad header, taking those raw ideas and turning them into something real.
Exactly. And finally, K is for knowledge integration. This is where you take all the learnings from the process and feed them back into your system. You're always making your innovation engine better.
So it's a continuous cycle of innovating, learning, and improving.
You got it. And along with the Spark Arc framework, there are some amazing tools that can really help you with this process.
Like what?
Well, there are these AI-powered platforms that can analyze huge amounts of data to identify patterns and trends we might miss on our own. And there are also tools that let you visually map out your ideas and see how they connect.
So it's like we're combining our own human creativity with the analytical power of AI.
Exactly. We're working smarter, not harder, right? There was this product innovation team that was really struggling to come up with new ideas. Once they started using the Spark framework and some of these AI tools, their output increased fourfold. They went from generating 3 viable product ideas a month to 12.
Wow. Talk about a spark. But what about when you do have those great ideas? How do you scale them up? It seems like a lot of people get stuck at that stage.
Scaling can definitely be a challenge, but just like innovation, it's a process we can engineer. And there's a framework that can help us do it. It's called SCALE.
Another framework I'm in. What's scale all about?
The first S is for systematize. This is where you get those processes documented and streamlined. You identify what can be automated and create a solid base for growth.
So it's about building a system that you can easily replicate as you grow.
Exactly. Then comes C for calibrate. You need to make sure your system can adapt to change. So you're allocating resources, strategically setting clear performance metrics, and making sure you're getting feedback to stay on track.
So you're basically keeping a close eye on everything and making adjustments as needed.
Yes. Next is A for amplify. This is where you really start to leverage your strengths. You're looking for ways to multiply your impact and accelerate your growth.
Finding those key things that really make a difference.
Right. And as you're scaling up, you always want to be learning and getting better. That's L for learn. You're collecting data, analyzing your results, always looking for ways to improve.
Turning every success into a learning experience.
Exactly. And lastly, E is for evolve. This is about making sure your success is sustainable. You're adapting to new changes, integrating new innovations, and future-proofing your system so it can handle anything.
So you're building something that's not just successful today, it's going to be successful 5, 10 years down the line.
That's the goal. The SCALE framework really helps you take those initial wins and turn them into long-term sustainable growth.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground. We've talked about innovation, scaling up, and even future-proofing. But there's an even bigger question here. How do we make sure our success has a lasting impact? How do we build a legacy that goes beyond just our own lifetime?
That's such an important question. It's about understanding that success isn't just about what we achieve personally, but also about the positive impact we make on the world and putting systems in place to make sure that impact continues to grow even after we're gone.
So we're talking about legacy not in the traditional sense of buildings or money, but in terms of making a real difference.
Yes, shifting the focus from me to we, from short-term gains to long-term impact. And just like everything else we've talked about, we can engineer this process. And there's a framework that can help us. It's called Impact TE.
Okay, give me the impact rundown. What's involved?
So it all starts with I for initiate. This is where you define your vision, your values, the things that will guide your legacy. You're connecting your purpose to something bigger than yourself.
So it's about making sure your legacy is aligned with something truly meaningful.
Exactly. Then there's M for measure. This is about making your legacy tangible. You're figuring out how you're going to actually measure your impact, setting up systems to track your progress, and clearly defining what success looks like.
So it's not enough to have good intentions. We have to have a way to track if we're actually making a difference.
Right. Once you have that clear vision and a way to track your progress, you move to P for perpetuate. Now you're designing for sustainability. You're putting systems in place that will continue to create value and have a positive impact even when you're not around anymore.
So making your legacy self-sustaining, something that can thrive on its own.
Exactly. But we also need to make sure it can adapt and change as the world changes. That's where A for adapt comes in. You're building in mechanisms that allow your legacy to respond to new challenges, integrate new innovations, and stay relevant over time.
Future-proofing your legacy.
Yes. But creating a great system isn't enough. You need to share it with the world. That's C for contribute. You're sharing your knowledge, your resources, and your network. Building a community around your legacy and connecting it to the larger world to increase its impact.
So collaboration is a key part of making a lasting impact.
It is. And finally, T is for transform. You're embracing that mindset of continuous improvement, always looking for ways to enhance your legacy's impact and making sure it continues to grow and evolve.
So it's a lifelong journey of learning and growing and making a difference.
Exactly. The impact framework gives you a roadmap for taking those aspirations and turning them into a legacy that can really make a difference.
We've explored so many incredible frameworks in this deep dive, from deep work to innovation, scaling up future-proofing, and even building a lasting legacy. It's clear that to achieve extraordinary things in 2025 and beyond, we need to think holistically. We need to connect all of these pieces into one system. But how do we do that?
That's where the idea of mastery integration comes in. We're taking all of those frameworks, tools, and insights and weaving them together into a seamless system.
So we're creating synergy, right?
Yeah.
The whole is greater than the sum of its parts.
Exactly. And just like everything else we've talked about, there's a framework to guide us. Master.
Okay, hit me with it. What's master?
So we begin with M for merge. This is where we start connecting the various systems and frameworks, making sure they're aligned with our goals and values and working together smoothly.
We're creating one unified system.
Right. But A is for amplify. We're looking for those areas where the systems work even better together, those 1+1=3 situations.
Leveraging the power of the combined system.
Exactly. Then S for systemize. We're taking all of those pieces and putting them into a smooth running system, streamlining, automating, making sure the system works for us.
So we're building something that's efficient and sustainable.
Yes. And of course, we need to constantly be evolving and transforming. That's T for transform. We're using the system to push our boundaries, combine skills in new ways, and really elevate our impact.
So it's about using this system as a launch pad for growth.
Yes. And as we're transforming, we're also E for enhancing. We're always looking for ways to sharpen our skills, improve our system, and reach that next level of performance.
Striving for excellence in everything we do.
That's it. And finally, R is for revolutionize. We're embracing the power of innovation, always challenging the status quo and making sure our system can keep up with a world that's changing faster than ever.
So innovation keeps us ahead of the game.
Exactly. The master framework gives you a way to integrate everything into a powerful system for achieving extraordinary results.
We've been on quite a journey in this deep dive. We've gone deep into so many different aspects of success. Deep work, energy management, flow states, habits, decisions, innovation, scaling, future-proofing, building a legacy, and now mastery integration. It's a lot to take in. But this feels like just the beginning.
It is. This deep dive has given you a taste of the possibilities, but the real magic happens when you take these concepts and adapt them to your own life, your own goals, and your own unique circumstances.
It's about taking control of your journey and designing your own success.
And remember, you don't have to do it alone. Connect with other people who are on this same path. Share what you're learning, ask questions, support each other along the way.
Absolutely. The journey is always better when you have people to share it with.
So what will you do next?
That's a great question for our listeners to think about. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and keep pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
The future is in our hands. It's being created by those who are willing to embrace these ideas and take action. Will you be one of them?